Hi everyone, welcome to Maximum Attack Rallying. We have exciting news in the world of the WRC. A new constructor has been announced ahead of Rally Las Canarias. There have been rumours abound this week on a few outlets, but I wanted to wait until today and until we got an official announcement until I said anything about it, and we now have that, so we'll get into that in a minute. I do just want to address the elephant in the room, because you can probably tell from the background of this video that I am not in Saudi Arabia, and there is a very good reason for that, though not a very cheerful one. So basically, to cut a long story short, I've been having a few tests and things over the last couple of weeks, and they found something on my tongue, a tumour, and I needed to get treated for that. So I'm back in the UK because it's a very unusual type of C word, let's use use that expression. In Saudi, they don't really have enough cases to have to treat it, so I've moved back here for now. The reason I don't usually like to talk about personal things like that. I don't think it's really relevant, and I suspect a lot of you don't really kind of care about my life, but I wanted to talk about it. The main reason I wanted to mention it is twofold. Firstly, because obviously it might mean some disruption to videos over the next few weeks as things happen, because I'm probably going to have surgery, and it might impact me speaking and making videos a little bit. I will, over the coming days, try and record a couple of things ahead of time, so when we reach that point, I'll have some stuff to post, even if I'm not able to record. The other reason I wanted to mention it is just, I suppose, to say what everyone else says when they're in this situation, and that is, if you think something is wrong, go and get it checked. Go to a doctor, have it looked at. I was very fortunate. I noticed a bit of swelling in my neck here. I thought it was probably just an infection or something, but when I went to the doctor, they did a bit more digging, obviously, did some tests, did some biopsies and all those sorts of things, and they found out that it was a tumour that needed to be dealt with. And that's that. It's been a bit of a roller coaster, and it's just something that I have to deal with. Thankfully, it's nothing too serious, and I'm told that it's just something that can be treated, hopefully with it being removed and then potentially a bit of radiotherapy. So still kind of in the waiting phase of finding out exactly what's going to happen. But as I said, just if you notice anything different, whatever it is, wherever it is, do go and get it looked at, because you don't want to wait. You don't want to find out further down the line when it's much more serious and much more difficult to deal with. So there we go. That's all I'm going to say about that. Like I said, there might be some disruption. Hopefully not. I'll try and record a few things so I can fill in the gaps whenever that is. But other than that, that is why I'm here, and that's why I'm sitting by this beautiful riverbank here just outside Norwich. So what do we know? Well, this new project is coming out of Spain. It is a collaboration with RMC Motorsport and the Spanish governing body, the RFEDA. Technically, we don't really know anything at this stage. Obviously, as with any other 2027 car, it will be based on Rally 2 mechanical components and around a space frame chassis. RMC have apparently already built 2 chassis for prototype purposes and for approval with the FIA, but other than that, we really don't know very much at all. We don't know if it's going to share any resemblance to a production car of any kind, and we don't know what engine they're going to use. Are they going to use something from Toyota, Skoda, M Sport, whoever? So not much in terms of technical detail, but RMC Motorsport have plenty of form. So if you are not familiar, they have been building N5 cars for a few years now. Basically, an N5 car is similar to an R5/Rally 2 car in that it takes a normal small hatchback type car and converts it to four-wheel drive. The big difference, though, is that for N5, they use running gear based out of a Subaru, so the engine is longitudinally mounted and not transversely mounted. Still has a sequential gearbox, still 1.6 litre turbocharged. I think it's based on a Peugeot Citroën type engine, and they were offered or are offered as an alternative to Rally 2 cars, so a little bit cheaper to run and buy. The cost is aimed more at the kind of Rally 4 level, but with performance closer to that of a Rally 2 car, not quite as fast, a second or so slower per kilometre, I do believe. So kind of a stepping stone for those who can't afford a full-on Rally 2 car. And now RMC have, in conjunction with the Spanish governing body, decided to jump in and produce a 2027 car. So how do we feel about this? My feelings about the 2027 regulations are no secret. I'm not a fan. I really don't see the point. I don't see why we've added this additional level of complexity to build cars that are on a performance level with Rally 2. I think we could have avoided this whole thing if we just allowed private companies to privately homologate Rally 2 specification cars. So I don't think that part of it was necessary. I don't like the technical part of it. That said, I do think there is merit in this addition to the 2027 field, mainly because of this involvement of the Spanish governing body. I think it's interesting that they've decided to do this. You know, they've talked about showcasing the Spanish motorsport industry, which I think is really good. And you know, this is a country with a long and storied history in motorsport. If you look back to the 90s, there was a lot of development work going on in Spain, particularly around Citroën. So the Citroën's ZX kit car was very, very heavily developed in Spain. It was a highly successful car, if not that well known outside of Spain itself. So, you know, there are a lot of smart rally engineers in Spain. So I think to see that being promoted, you know, you have to say that's a good thing. I think it's going to be interesting if that tie-up results in increased driver development programs. You know, are they going to get young Spanish drivers into these 2027 cars that are being built by RMC Motorsport? Is there going to be support to try and bring through the next generation of Spanish drivers to follow in the footsteps of Dani Sordo? For me, that's a good thing. You know, I think that is the strength of this bid. I think it brings a lot of opportunity for promotion and for driver development. So all of that I think is good. You know, I'm often critical of 2027, but you know, there's no criticism from me on that front. I think, you know, it's good in terms of promotion for Spain and its drivers and its engineers and all of that stuff. So that's really good. That said, I think they could have achieved the very same thing if we'd had, you know, privately built Rally 2 cars and we hadn't gone down this space frame route. But there are many other videos on this channel about that, so I don't want to go into that in too much detail. So as it stands then, we now have 3 teams building cars to 2027 Rally 1 regulations. So we've got Toyota, who've been testing their car. We've got Project Rally 1 in Belgium, and we've got this new team in Spain. So it's very, very interesting, isn't it? Things are developing. We are potentially going to have a highly competitive 2027 season with those 3 cars, alongside all of the Rally 2 cars from Lancia and whoever else. You know, Skoda will still have people competing in Toyotas and Citroëns and Fiestas and all of those other cars. So, you know, it's going to be fascinating from that perspective to see how those 2 cars compare. Are we going to see an advantage for the Rally 1 cars? Are we going to see the very, very well-developed Rally 2 cars beating them, at least in the early days? There's a lot of unanswered questions, isn't there? And we don't know how things are going to pan out. And what is also interesting, someone pulled me up for not talking about this yet, is that we might even see a return for Tanak, who has been testing the new 2027 Toyota. He did a tarmac test in Croatia. I think it was after Rally Croatia, wasn't it? So, you know, I think that is fascinating. It's fascinating to see that he is dabbling again already. You know, he's not even had a year out and he's back in a car and seeing how things go. Will he come back full time? I don't know. I think from what I've seen from his comments, it seems that he's enjoying being back in a car. Does that mean that he's ready to jump back into a full-time WRC campaign, you know, 13, 14 events a year? I don't know about that. You know, it might just be that he wants to drive a rally car again, and maybe he's going to come back with a view to being a bit more picky about what he does. You know, what we might see is that he just decides to do a few events. You know, maybe he'll take the kind of Ogier approach and just do the events he enjoys. You know, maybe he doesn't want to do a full season, but wants to still keep his hand in and keep driving. Maybe he'll just enjoy the testing side of it. You know, maybe he'll just want to keep helping Toyota develop that car. And you know, after this season is done and once the car goes into full-time competition, he might not want to come back. That might be enough. You know, he might just do the odd rally at home or in other countries. So I don't think it's necessarily a sign that he's on his way back full-time. It might be, you know, driving the car might make him think, do you know what, I missed this, I want to be back. Toyota is the place for me to be, and it is. You know, make no mistake, if Tanak is coming back, Toyota is the place to be, because you know, you have to say of all the 2027 cars, theirs is probably going to be the best, isn't it? Because their budget is going to be bigger than anyone's. You know, Project Rally 1 and RMC Motorsport are not going to match the investment and development budget of Toyota. So You know, they are going to be the team to beat in terms of the 2027 spec cars. Whether they're the team to beat overall, it depends on how things land with the 2027 cars in terms of performance, doesn't it? But I still maintain that those cars will end up being the fastest. I think the regulations will be skewed slightly in favour of them, and I think that would suit the FIA, wouldn't it? Because it would mean that their newly designed regulation set has been shown to work. So for me, will he come back? I don't know. I really don't know what to think about that. From his words, you know, he was very non-committal, but, you know, we have seen plenty of surprises from Tanak in the past. Obviously, he left Toyota when he won his championship, and he can be unpredictable, can't he? You know, he left Toyota last time because he wasn't getting on that well. Apparently, there were issues between him and Tommy Mäkinen. Mäkinen is, of course, no longer there, so, you know, maybe that is enough for him to go back and feel comfortable in that team. And if he wants to win more championships, which, you know, if he's still feeling that way, you know, as I said, Toyota is absolutely the place to be, because even if the new car isn't that good, well, you know, he's still got the option of a Rally 2 car, hasn't he? So that would be obviously a very bizarre situation if it turns out that he went back to Toyota and that the GR Yaris Rally 2 was the car to pick. But, you know, that gives him options, I suppose. So I think, if nothing else, you know, as I said, I am no fan of these new regulations. I do think they are a bit of a mess, and I think they are still trying to answer a question that didn't need to be answered. Yeah, I think, you know, if nothing else, it is going to create plenty of intrigue, isn't it, over the next few months, you know, once we get into Monte Carlo, Sweden, you know, those first few events of 2027, where these new cars land. You know, is Toyota going to run away with it with their new car? Where's this RMC car going to end up? Where's this Pro Speed, you know, Project Rally 1 car going to end up? Are those private teams going to be able to invest sufficient money in time and development and refining those cars to be able to beat your Skodas, your Lancias, your Citroens, your M Sport Fords and all of that? It's going to be an absolutely fascinating time. So I'm still not a fan of the regulations. Like I said, though, there is plenty to like about this RMC announcement in terms of the promotional and driver development side. So it's going to be really interesting to see how it plays out, isn't it? Anyway, I'm going to stop talking because I've rabbited on enough. I would love to know what you guys think about it. Let me know in the comments. Do you think this is a good thing, a bad thing? How do you feel about 27 rules? Now we've got a few more teams showing interest. Do you think things are going in the right direction? I'd love to hear it. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you think in the comments. Make sure you hit those like and subscribe buttons. As I said, I will try to keep the videos coming as much as possible, though I will apologise in advance if there are any gaps. I will do my best to make sure there aren't. Other than that, all that remains for me to say is thank you very much for watching, and I will see you again in the next video.